basically the issue right now at hand is that when Matt McLain comes back, he's going to be available, and you obviously are going to have to play him because of his track record from basically prior play. You have CES, Candelario, Steer, and Fraley. You have 4 guys that are providing little to no value. Steer is a guy that obviously could go on the IL, in my opinion, just so you can get him healthy. CES, a young guy, so he needs to play, Nick. Like, he's going to have to play. Whether it's in AAA or the big leagues, he's going to have to play at some point. You have also, I'll even add in the mix of Marte. Marte's a guy who I guess you could say kind of has looked decent, but he looked terrible in the Winter League. He looked terrible all last year, and he played well, and he looked terrible in the spring, but then he's played well in AAA to start the season off. So there's no guarantee there. But he needs to play every day because he's a prospect. And then you have Candelario, who you paid a bunch of money to. So what do you do with him? It's just the Reds are in a kind of a unique spot where it's almost like, do you just play to try to win every day with your best players, or do you need to try to keep remembering that there's prospects here and we can't just stash them on the bench?
Well, CES is also apparently dealing with, the quote was banged up from Charlie Goldsmith, with back and hamstring issues. And I think Francona's quote, I couldn't find the exact quote, but was something about hoping a few consecutive days off will make him feel better. Look, I'm a biggest CES fan, but just put him on the IL. I fully supported Matt McLain, giving him extra time because, man, you know right now how valuable he can be. I understand that. What CES has been really bad. Like, just put him on the IL. I don't understand why they didn't have him. Like, there's a lot of roster moves right now. Like, this week of roster management is like, I just don't understand it. The Reds go 5-1. Just like you throw your hands up in the air and go, well, no one's going to listen. It's like when the Reds are losing and I try to say, well, there's this pod. No one wants to listen to you then. Yeah, exactly. And when you want to complain about the roster where they're winning, no one wants to listen to you then. So I don't know. I mean, if CES isn't 100%, put him on the IL. As soon as that's done, put him on a rehab assignment. It's not a demotion. It feels better. Like, I just don't understand that. There's not a team in baseball right now that would bench Candelario completely. You might stagger some starts or something like that, but you're not going to bench the guy that's paying this much money. The same guy that had almost identical numbers for the first 15 games of last season and then went on a big run. So it's not happening. You can complain till you're blue in the face. It's not going to happen. And no one else that's in the red spot would do that. Spencer Steer, it's just a massive mistake to put this guy on the opening day roster. I don't know what the hell they were doing with this. We knew it at the time. We felt it at the time. And it was a massive mistake. Are these mistakes that the Reds have made with roster management? Like, is there big solutions? No, but I think there's better solutions, and I don't understand why they've gone this route.
For whatever reason, it seems like the Reds have kind of thrown themselves into the thought that they have legitimate, established big league players that are at best guys that you would consider starting their major league career. That's kind of how I look at it. I know this is, maybe a little not on the bright side, but even Matt McLain, right? Like we as a fan base look at Matt McLain like he's, Scott Rowland in his prime. And I'm not trying to say that he can't be that great of a player. I love Matt McLain as much as anybody, but it's almost as like we're not that far removed from Matt McLain also, struggling, if you want to call it that, in the minor leagues for a little bit of time. He's looked unbelievable since he's been here. So you know what? Me and you, Nick, both, we think he's that guy. But now he's propped up some injury concerns. So, there's no real set in stone answer when it comes to this lineup, which is why I think maybe we both agree. We don't always agree, but I think we both agree that there just shouldn't be set pieces and set in stone thoughts that when it comes to things that this team should do. Like, they're treating Spencer Steer like he's been with this ball club for 8 years and he's basically had a career similar to like Candelario per se. He's just not had that. You add on the fact that he's been hurt or he was hurt and you stick him on the opening day roster when he can't play the field. I don't know what they do. I really don't know what they do. I guess we'll find out. I'm not suggesting that the answer is going to be pretty simple, but the whole reason we're talking about all this, I guess, is largely because much of the discussion is, what do you do with Santiago Espinal? And my clear main answer right now is leave him alone. Let him play in the infield every day. If you need to give one of the guys off, or give a guy a rest, so be it. And I'm not suggesting Elly needs a day off, but if Elly were to need a day off, okay, then Espinal is playing. He can play second base, he can play third base, but damn near every day, 5 days a week, I'd like Espinal playing in the infield until somebody decides they can hit a baseball on this roster. Until then, I just can't imagine not having him be in the lineup. You have Marte with a question mark. Listen, I think you know what's weird about this show? Is you do it every night, obviously. You do it nearly every day, so you're always trying to kind of find a way to talk about things that are unique in nature, and you want to try to not keep hashing over the same thing over and over again. You know, I had said on this show yesterday that I think that Marte, similar to Will Benson in a way, is one of those guys that has a ceiling that they're capable of probably reaching that gets this team over the proverbial hump when there's other guys that can't get there. And I had said yesterday that Noelvi Marte is a big piece of the puzzle here if we want this team to be a legitimate World Series contending team. Now, that's a far stretch from where they're at probably right at this moment, but I think that's one of the pieces to the puzzle. But on the very next day, I'm trying to at least warn some others of saying, like, hey, just because this guy comes up here, he hits a couple balls hard, he gets on base, he makes one diving play. Let's not just now all of a sudden say that he's demanded to play every single day at the major league level and forget about the fact that he looked terrible for what has been a year and, oh, by the way, was suspended for half the season for being an idiot. I'm on Marte's side. I'm a Marte fan, but at the same time, I'm trying to at least temper the expectations here of what we think we have in Marte, if that makes sense. It's like if Santiago, I guess I'll pose to you because of this question. If Santiago Espinal was a prospect, would we view him quite literally the same, or if not better, than the way that some people want to paint Noelvi Marte at this moment?
We would definitely view Espinal better right now.
Right.
I mean, I think I can't imagine Espinal's not going to play every day. And if Matt McLain's back on Tuesday, then it seems like a slam dunk decision that Marte gets demoted. The last thing I want is Noelvi Marte not playing every day. I don't really care if he plays in the big leagues or in AAA. I just want him playing every single day and getting better because I am a long-term Marte believer. So again, what do the Reds do roster management wise? I assume Marte is the guy that goes down, and then maybe either CES is put on the IL or Hurtubise, I guess.
Right.
Hurtubise continues to survive on this roster. I mean, it seems like that would be if you had to guess, that would be the choices would be if CES is healthy, I think it's Marte and Hurtubise. If CES is not healthy, I think it's Marte and CES. But normally I felt pretty confident in the past trying to guess Reds' decisions. This year, I have zero confidence in my ability to guess their thinking anymore.
Is it crazy? And I guess this is kind of where I'm at. I don't love it from a development perspective, possibly, but I do think that guys can get better outside of the game itself. I do think the game is probably what would harden you the most and make you develop the most. So I tend to what I'm getting ready to say. I don't know if I believe it full-heartedly myself, but at least it just is a bridge for now. Would we be opposed to giving Marte a first baseman's mitt from time to time and just seeing if there's a way to get him at bats at the big league level if he finds a way to stay consistently? And then, oh, by the way, he can play third base as well. I'm not trying to suggest he's an everyday first baseman, but it's almost like I continue to go back into this, hey, let's just go all in on defense, and maybe he would turn out to be a bad first baseman because it's a different position, but I have a hard time believing that. If I'm trying to be disrespectful here, but I'm being serious. If Candelario can take a first baseman mitt and figure it out, I think Noelvi can. Is that even a thought or an option at some point if he continues to play well?
They got it. With all due respect, that they could have to see 2 weeks of Matt McLain stay healthy for me to consider that.
Okay.
I mean, because you send Marte down and you tell Noelvi, I mean, you might be right back up here if Matt McLain gets hurt. He slows the third, Espinal goes to second. So I'm not chasing things now. I know a lot of people have kind of said the same things with like Sal Stewart. Hey, maybe we should start, putting him in right. You don't want to chase things until you have to. I don't think you want to waste guys trying to learn multiple positions that are unnecessary.
Right.
You kind of want to wait. I would rather they wait till they're necessary because Marte, I feel, and from what I've watched, I don't get to watch every inning at AAA by any stretch of the imagination. But from what I watched, Marte looks significantly better at third base defensively than last year, just watching him. He's certainly not as much of a liability as we saw, which was whatever Marte did last year defensively was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. I mean, this guy came up as a shortstop, supposed to be a all-around player, and it was just bizarre how bad he was. So I don't know if I necessarily want to take his attention away from continuing to develop on the left side of the infield. I know the Reds have been playing him somewhat short down at AAA and at third base. I think both of those are good options just to have him continue to get better.
Yeah, it's just like the Reds. The tough thing right now, if we're being completely honest, is that we can't find the guys that we thought were going to be everyday players for us at the positions we were hoping to grow with them in. We can't find either health or we can't find consistency. Now, Marte has a chance to possibly provide that. He's not gotten a lot of opportunity to do so. The last half of the season last year, he was terrible. But to be fair, he was coming off the fact that he had gotten suspended. I don't know what kind of impact that made on him, whether his preparedness to play in the second half and or just his mental psyche of being able to come back from maybe a super embarrassing thing. And Matt McLain just can't stay healthy because of injuries. But the truth of the matter is that was the plan, and it still is what I would probably say behind closed doors. The Reds, if they had a kind of a perfect way of going about things, clearly Marte's your third baseman. Clearly Matt McLain's probably your second baseman. And the issue, Nick, is that neither one of those things have happened. And then you have a guy like Espinal who makes it a little muddy because he plays well enough and he's playing good enough to earn the right to keep playing. And you're still a professional franchise, right? Like, you're still trying to win every single day. You can't always just kind of punt to next season and be like, well, we're just developing our guys for next year. We were told that in 2023. This fan base, for the most part, right? And we try to defend the decision, but the fan base was told in 2023, like, hey, pump the brakes here, guys. We're not going to really go out and get anybody at the deadline because look at this young core that we have. Look how they're progressing. And let's not try to maybe trade somebody that we might want to use in a couple of years when this young core is at their prime. And that makes perfect sense. The logic is completely there. The issue ultimately is that if one thing doesn't go right and then it leads to the next thing, you start to kind of have some cracks in this plan. And that's where I think the Reds currently sit, if we're being completely honest. Matt McLain, if he's healthy every day, it makes things a lot more simple. If Marte doesn't get suspended for steroids, plays relatively okay, probably never loses his spot at third base, and we don't have to try to sit here and figure out, does he fit in or not fit in? Does he play or not play? And the thing that sucks the most is the position flexibility for these guys is that they're such young prospects that you don't want to move them a ton because they're still prospects. You don't want to ruin their career or where they might best serve you in a year or two. But the truth of the matter is what they would best serve us doing right now, Nick, is probably playing some different positions that allow them to get in the lineup every day. So if Marte's not capable of playing a corner outfield spot and he's not capable of playing first base, then he doesn't really get the leash that Jake Fraley gets, right? Like, I think we could all agree that we would love Marte to get the same leash, if not longer, probably longer, leash than Jake Fraley. And the issue is
that
a
lot of players to get that leash.
Yeah, the issue is that he doesn't play a position that affords him that opportunity. He just doesn't. I mean, unless Espinal falls off the face of the earth and starts making some errors, and then also on top of that doesn't get any better at the plate, it's hard to make all this make sense. So I'm just openly saying it's muddy for a reason, and this offense is abysmal, largely because our first base stinks from a production standpoint offensively. Our DH stinks from a production standpoint offensively. And then we have kind of these platoon splits that we get ourselves in the outfield that they also then stink. Lux has good at bats, and he's gotten forced to face left-handed pitching a pretty considerable amount of time based off what we probably expected coming into the year. But outside of that, there's just really not a lot to get excited about offensively from the outfield.
How about Jake Fraley whiffing on another ball today?
I'm trying not to beat a dead horse. I really don't want to come. My thing is that we swept them, right? We swept them. We should be excited as fans. And some people might take this talk right now as like, oh, man, and they're like, this is down in the dumps. This is great. As I said before, we're 8-8, Nick, and we quite literally have – I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I think you could quite literally take a blind pick out of the hat of Division I SEC baseball players right now, and whoever you get out of that hat, they plug and play for the major league lineup right now in those certain positions. And I would be willing to bet, you think I'm joking, I would be willing to bet that we got around the same production.
I mean, some of these numbers, it's not hard to argue with you on that. Yeah, no, this team was built to win ugly. Like that's part of the equation here. But I think we can also should be allowed to still be a little bit frustrated with the construction of this offense and the way it's being handled right now, and the fact that Jake Fraley whiffs on another ball, hasn't hit worth a lick all year, and has a different set of accountability standards than everyone else. I don't understand it. I would like to have that answer to me. Why is this accountability thing pushed and preached, and Jake Fraley continues to get run out there every single day against right-handed pitching?
Right. Yeah, but you know what? Listen, let's jump off here, because I think ultimately we're talking about things that we know that we're concerned about, and I think this fan base should know that we're very much in a position where we should be concerned about these things. But as I've kept trying to say, the truth of the matter is that this team's 8-8. This team is 8-8, and they were 3-7 not that long ago. After losing multiple games by 1 run, not scoring on consecutive nights, going into the 3rd consecutive night, quite literally not scoring a run until like the 7th inning. And the only reason you could be 8-8 is if you have obviously good starting pitching, but then also your bullpen holds up, right? And I think that as we move forward, the bullpen is going to get bolstered, I would think, a little bit by Alexis Diaz. I don't know what this team is going to do. I guess what will be Tuesday, they're going to have to make a roster decision, I would assume. I say that every single time on this show, to be clear, for the last, what has been 2 years. And every single time, Nick, I must tell you that there's an IL. There's some kind of injury that happens, and next thing you know, they make a roster move because this guy had gotten hurt. What do you do with the bullpen? Alexis Diaz comes back. They've been pretty damn good. Sam Moll on the way out. I don't know what you think about the whole situation, but where are your thoughts at with the bullpen?
Yeah, first off, bullpen just continues to perform well. 8th in Major League Baseball in ERA, 3.23. Shout out to Tony Santillan, already pitched in 9 games, 9 of 16 games. That's quite a bit. 0.93 ERA, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. That's pretty good. How about Ian Jabot? Gave up 4 runs on opening day. He's only allowed 1 run in 6 outings since.
Yep.
And that only run that he allowed was in a 8-2 loss to the Brewers, and he was one of the last pitchers to pitch in that game. So it was an inconsequential run. So shout out to Ian Jabot, and that kind of leads me to The stuff today made it sound Diaz was in Cincinnati. Sounds like he is for sure going to be activated on Tuesday. I don't know why he'd be in Cincinnati and not. Interesting comments. The thing you got to always remember with a player like Alexis Diaz is a lot of times these comments I think can get really easily lost in translation. So I know there's a lot of people upset. I don't know, maybe upset is not the right word, but concerned that Diaz said something about I was told to throw the ball down the middle, and I'm like, maybe there was something more to that, but sounds like Alexis Diaz will be added, and yeah, Sam Moll has to be the odd man out. There's only two players that have options, and it's Ashcraft and Moll. Ashcraft certainly is not getting sent down. Right. Ian Jabot's pitched certainly well enough to not get DFA'd. If Ian Jabot is good enough to be on the opening day roster, then the last 6 games have certainly been good enough to keep his spot. Right. So,
if you're going to bring up Jabot, if we're going to bring up someone from DFA perspective, I'm not trying to get. That's not going to happen. To be clear, I think Moll's going to get optioned. But I've said it before. I'll say it again. Like clearly, Jabot's valued higher than Suter.
But Suter's on guaranteed money, and I have a hard time believing they're going to throw away guaranteed money in April. Same thing with Barlow. I mean, Jabot's on a league minimum deal where you're only paying him what you paid him so far. So it would be a lot easier from a payroll perspective to DFA Jabot than it would Suter or Barlow, which is why I don't think there's any chance those guys are DFA'd in April. You don't see that very often. I mean, you have to be really, really bad to get guaranteed money on a big league contract and get DFA'd in April. I don't think either one of those guys are at that level.
They're not going to. No one's going to get DFA'd, to be clear.
It's going to be Moll. Yeah. But again, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
The roster,
better be careful.
And they're also in more seriousness. There also is always the possibility that someone's dealing with something that we don't know, and they get put on the IL on Tuesday.
Yeah, gastritis.
They're never going to tell you. They're never going to tell you that one of these guys is injured, and they shouldn't, because that would be an advantage to the Brewers if they knew that. Let's just say, for example, Taylor Rogers was dealing with something. Well, they know that the Reds are down a left-handed pitcher, so that's always a possibility too. But if it's not, I feel like it's pretty confidently Moll.
It has to be Moll, but I mean, he's only pitched. I haven't looked at the bullpen usage, but he's pitched twice all year.
I have it up here. He's only pitched 3 games, 2 innings.
He's thrown 2 innings this year.
Everyone else has thrown at least 4, and that's just Suter, who's kind of that, right. And then everyone else is over 6. So, yeah, I mean, that's quite a leap.
Yeah. So, listen, I think the Reds are in a great spot. They're in a great spot for where they could have been. I think perspective in life is probably the best thing that you can have in all aspects of life. And, there's times where you can be frustrated with your baseball team when they're 10-6, and you could be happy with your baseball team when they're 6-10. I couldn't be more thrilled that this baseball team's 8-8. I mean, they have needed every bit of unbelievable pitching to stay relevant, and they've gotten it. Because the truth is that we know that throughout the rest of this year, this pitching isn't going to be this good. It's just almost downright impossible to be this good. And they just so happen to deliver this level of greatness, if you want to call it that, at a time that the offense couldn't have been much worse. And what you find yourself is in an 8-8 record. We make fun of run differential from time to time on this show. I know that can be used at the end of the year to kind of get, at least from a big numbers perspective, a good gauge on maybe, how unlucky or how lucky you were when it comes to kind of when your production comes. Because there's clearly, from an analytics perspective, there's some people that just believe that large numbers are going to obviously bear out. They always do. The math is the math. And you're going to get production out of this team, and this is what you're going to get. The question is how does it basically come out of the machine? And if you find yourself in a spot where, from the run differential standpoint, as we've seen a couple of games this year, where you get all of your offense and all of your pitching at the exact same time, you might think to yourself that, that's great. But the truth is if we find ourselves in a position where our offense is horrific and the pitching is horrific, or even call it average, you're going to dig yourself such a big hole that you can't get out of it. They did it last year. They quite literally did it last year. And I was worried about that because it feels like we've not gotten a chance to get this plan A, if you want to call it that, Nick. We've not gotten a chance to see that this year. Austin Hays, obviously not available. Tyler Stevenson, obviously not available. Matt McLain, hurt again. You might say that this is just what it is, and I'm with you, Nick. I'm not using that as an excuse, to be clear. But I think we can all at least admit that this offense wasn't supposed to be this bad and probably is not going to be this bad for the remainder of the year. Are they going to be good enough? I don't know. I'm not proclaiming that. But we needed the starting pitching to be absolutely unbelievable for us to be 8-8, and we are. So I think that that's an unbelievable silver lining.
Yeah, then the pitching, I mean, you're right. It's not going to be this level a year, but you hope that you have the depth to survive. You know, Cubs had a brutal break today. Their ace, Justin Steele, is out for the year, so there's no guarantee the Reds won't lose someone big at some point, but the Cubs had probably a close to equal 1 through 5 as the Reds, but where the Reds, I think, had the better was 6 through 10. And so that's, the one thing that the Reds, you can make up a lot of ground if you have healthy pitching and another team doesn't, and you have more depth than another. So we'll see how that plays out throughout the year, but I mean, you just can't be more excited about the way this team, this pitching staff just gives this team a chance to win every single night.
That it does. A few last topics of conversation I've seen in the chat. I have some supers that we'll get to, but one of them was obviously trying to play Lux at third base. I personally want no part of that. I as I've said before, I'll say it again. I just don't know if he's going to be capable of playing even remotely good defense over there. He's not. It's not a position. I know you're going to tell me that he's not played the outfield either, but it's not a position that he's played a lot of. It's not a position that he even worked on in spring training a ton. I know that he took some ground balls over there, but Nick, when we had watched the kind of the prospects games, he wasn't taking ground balls at third base, and maybe he is taking ground balls at third base behind the scenes. But it's like we don't have a major deficiency in our infield right now. We just don't have that. We have a major deficiency in the outfield, and we have a major deficiency at DH and or what do you call first base? I guess that's part of the infield. But I don't want to try to solve a problem by creating another problem. I don't want to do that. And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I just don't think that trying to take one guy in one position that we're not too sure about and put him in another position that we're not too sure about just because we think that it might lead to a little bit better offensive production. Our offensive production stinks because we have some guys in it that are absolutely, horrific at positions that they're supposed to be playing.
This roster is nowhere close offensively to needing to force guys into positions that they're not adequate at. When we get to that point, we can have those conversations, but there's not enough good offensive players to force Gavin Lux into third base. And I feel like Lux has looked pretty decent in left field. I know he had that one really bad misplay in Milwaukee, but threw a runner out the other day. Overall, has looked pretty comfortable, and I feel like you don't have to squint too hard to say put Gavin Lux out there almost a full season. By the end of the year, he's probably pretty capable out there in left field. So,
and they're also hiding him late in the games. Like, they're doing a good job. I'll give Tito credit. They've done a good job of hiding these guys late in games. They've put Hurtubise out there a few times. Blake Dunn's made some plays out there, and they've made big plays. They really have. There's been the line drive catch by Hurtubise. Blake Dunn makes a line drive sliding grab late in baseball games when it matters. We have some guys on the bench that are capable of playing the outfield relatively well defensively. And I guess that's why I have a little soft spot in my heart for some of these guys. It's like, Blake Dunn, give it to me. I know he's maybe not great offensively, but neither is the rest of the guys out there. So if he's fast, he can catch the ball. Maybe he can get lucky and run into one every so often. He can get on base, steal a couple bags. Sign me up. And you know what? I never would have been a Stuart Fairchild stan either if it wasn't for the lack of offensive players that we have in this town. Like, there's a reason that I like Stuart Fairchild. There's a reason I like Blake Dunn. Is because at least they're providing me something that I know when I point to them at a Major League Baseball game, I can look at my kids and say, they are better than half of the league at that. And there's certain guys on this team that you can't do that with. And I'm looking directly at Candelario and looking directly at Spencer Steer and Jake Fraley.
Yeah, last thing you want to do is take away from your bread and butter. The bread and butter right now is pitching and surprisingly defense. So don't mess with that until you absolutely are forced to, because your offense and you got so many guys that are hitting so well that you need to force guys in there. But we're not even remotely close to that.
Not right now, we're not.